Today is December 12th, 2018. It is after 7 p.m., and we will commence the regularly scheduled meeting. I call this meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all. The next item is the approval of minutes for the November 28th, 2018 meeting. Have the minutes been reviewed by anyone?
Yes.
Deb has reviewed them, edited them, and they've been since updated.
So we will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It appears to be unanimous. We'll go on to general business 242-1669 and an extension request for 265 Summer Street.
So I was out there yesterday, I think, or the day before. Yep. And the wetland has been reflagged, all fresh flags out there. They're about ready to start work. The erosion control is out, and I recommend granting the one-year extension.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
You're good? Okay.
242-1641, an ORAD extension request for 100 Great Pond Road.
This is we've extended this once before. The flags have been refreshed, and I recommend giving it its final one-year extension.
Refresh my memory. I don't know. ORAD, they're good for 3 years to begin with. They're
Yep.
Extended once.
It can
Is it
be,
extended by another 3 years or?
no, just 1 year. Under the local
1 year.
bylaw, you only allow 2 one-year extensions, so I don't see any reason to,
But the original one's good for 3 years.
yeah. I think they just haven't decided what their planning is, or,
Move that we grant a one-year extension of the delineation for the ORAD.
Motion and a, looking for a second.
Doug just seconded.
Okay, motion and a second, I'm sorry. Any discussion? There's none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Okay, we're going to take this thing in order. We're going to go down the line. Enforcement orders, 79 Boxford Street, continued from November the 28th.
As you'll recall, this, unpermitted patio that had been constructed. Patio has since been removed. The drainage pipes that have been installed associated with that have also been removed, and wetland markers have gone up. Soil was also removed from the wetland. And I think we have full compliance, and the homeowner is here. If you have any questions, I just gave them all your photos.
Get some pictures.
Second.
I have no questions.
Deb?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay, what do you want, what do you recommend, Jennifer?
I would vote to release the EO and waive the usual filing fee to request the release, just because we've had some really good cooperation, and I don't see any reason for.
So move the both accounts.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
I'll send you something that basically says that, and put a copy in the file.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks.
Next EO is 350 Forest Street. Jen, if you'd bring us up to speed on this one.
So there were a couple enforcement orders issued on this one. The first was for dumping observed when I was on an adjacent property. And the second was when I passed by the house after I had issued the first EO, and a stone wall was being extended down the side. The homeowners have since, you had asked them to attend a meeting after the second EO was issued. No one attended. At that meeting, you voted to issue fines. Subsequently, I received contact from the homeowners and conducted a site visit. I gave them some wetland markers to install. At that point, the dumping that had occurred in the water is really high at this point, so a lot of the material had degraded and wasn't really visible. At this point, it would be very difficult to get in there and remove it. When I met with the homeowners, I brought them a copy of the order of conditions and plan from their septic system. We identified where the wetland begins and ends, and I gave them some wetland markers to install as they were required in that order. At this point, they're here, and you know, if you want to come and address the commission.
I just had a question. You said at this point, the water's high, so
Hold on
the
one second.
material is degraded.
Would you folks, if you don't mind, if you sit at the table, there's microphones there, and we can discuss your matter.
Are you saying that it's degraded to the point that you recommend not ever removing it, or not removing it
At this
time?
point, I can't see it, so I don't really know what's out there anymore. It's when we were out on the site, the water's up high enough that it's really hard to see, you know, what there would be to remove. A lot of it was, as you can see in the photos, grass clippings. Oh, I have some additional photos as well.
So we're not sure what we're looking to accomplish tonight, other than, are we asking just to let the water recede to make the final determination on that? Or you think we have enough information to make a determination to just leave the material in there?
I think at this point, it just needs to be clear that material can't go in there, whether you want any restoration of the 25-foot no disturb zone. It is largely unvegetated at this point. Where the access is as well, there's a stone wall that's been installed in the buffer zone. Whether or not you feel that requires permitting was another question.
Well, let's start with the dumping.
Okay.
I'd like to start there. What exactly do we know what's been dumped?
So when I was first out there, I was on the abutting property. There has been some discussion between the property owners about where the property line was. That had been surveyed. Again, I'm only reporting, you know, what I've seen and what I've been told.
Well, that's
so.
what we need you to do, because we haven't seen it. So
Right.
you give it your best shot of...
So the photos, if Joe flips that one over,
Yeah, I got
the
it.
back photos probably show it best. There's lawn debris and a bunch of sticks. The only other sort of evidence I have of prior dumping was the order of conditions that was issued for the septic system also identified that there had been dumping on this property back then, same homeowners. I'm assuming that was cleaned up because that project has a certificate of compliance.
What year was that?
I'm sure they might know better than me.
2003.
2003?
Three. And I didn't dump the stuff there, it was there before I got there.
So it was...
I cleaned it out.
It was there when you bought... You're saying it was there when you bought the
Yep.
house?
There was buckets back there, there was cement back there.
Okay, and you did...
I cleaned it out.
Okay, very good. So the debris that Jennifer's talking about right now, looks like it's basically yard waste and trees and branches and things like that.
Well, the trees and branches aren't from me, that's from storms. I haven't, that stuff, I can't even get to it. That stuff's in the water. It's been there since the storms of last year. And I burn all my brush is burned.
Yeah.
You
Could
talk to
any-
the fire department about that, I'll talk to them all the time.
Yeah, no, we're not saying we need validity. We just need you to
Yeah.
help us understand what's going on so we can...
The grass clippings was dumped there. I mean,
I can
there's
see,
no other way
I
they'd
can
end
see
up-
mowed grass in the photo.
Yeah.
There's nothing there now, it's water.
Well,
No, I'm saying I'm looking at
It's
it.
underwater, it's still there, right?
Yeah, well, I bet you in the spring you'll see nothing, but it'll be the same, it'll be mud.
Right, so the point we're trying to get here is nothing goes in there. That's the try with, okay? You know,
We got that.
I don't want to hear excuse after excuse.
No, I
Nothing
don't.
So
goes
we
in
got
there.
that.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Okay.
here to give an
Yeah,
excuse,
yeah,
and we
no mowing, no
apologize.
yard waste, no nothing, whether it's,
Yeah.
you know, the stuff that falls in falls in, but the stuff that's clearly dumped there doesn't go there.
Right.
Okay, that's the violation. And I
Right.
just don't want to hear the attitude, and I don't want to hear excuses. There's 15 things that you didn't do, but there's one thing you absolutely did, and that can't happen ever again, okay?
Right, we,
That's what we want to get
at the
across.
meeting with Jennifer and Savannah,
Now, the
we
stone
got
wall then, if
clarification.
that's aside, and I'm not convinced that just because the high water is high now, that we don't go in there and make an evaluation later on and reserve judgment on whether the material needs to come out and cleaned out. I want to reserve judgment on that, but right now, I'm not going to order that the material be removed. The wall, on the other hand, and if you guys have the permit for the septic system, you knew where the line was, and the wall is in violation, an activity in violation. It's not in the 25 or the 50 notice stuff, right? It's just in the resource area, in buffer zone?
We didn't have a tape that day, so we weren't able to measure. I would guess it extends about up to the 50-foot no-build zone, somewhere plus or minus, but
Alright,
it
so
doesn't go into any of,
So
it
it's
doesn't,
something that we would have permitted.
Correct.
If it's not, you know, closer than the 50. And, you know, if that's the case, then there needs to be a permitting action to memorialize the validity of that wall staying there. Now, the crazy thing is from what I'm seeing, is the wall looks like something we would advocate. The good physical barrier, and things like dumping and
not to the wetland. It's a physical barrier between the two properties, not to the wetland.
not to the back.
No.
All right, this is
So this, the wall you're saying is more
down the
related,
side
Property
and
line.
not to the rear.
so
Right.
it's solving the disputed line, is that what that does?
I don't know. It's a fine thing. It's just a property boundary. They had a wall that started up
extended
at the driveway, and they extended it down.
Okay.
And when they did the septic, they put up a fence, a black barrier. That black barrier, that wall goes up to where that black barrier was.
That's probably the old erosion control line I
Sure,
think
so
he's
fence.
referring to.
All right.
Which is where our grass ends. Where the grass ends, the wall ends.
So if the wall is not in, I mean, if it's in violation of the 2550, that's a separate question, but I think we need a permit to allow that wall to stay there. If it's in the resource area, if it's within the buffer zone. And you're saying it's definitely buffer zone, if not in the 50.
Again, all I have to measure, we didn't have a tape. There's a well out there that shows on the old plan as being the wetland line, so it's easy enough to pull off a tape and see if it's more than, I mean, if it's more than 50 feet away, it would have been a small project.
So the direction, I mean, it's wintertime, the direction tonight would be to do some more evaluation and report back at a future meeting?
No, I don't think it needs reporting back either, you know,
Well,
it needs a permit or it doesn't.
we're talking about the wall. Either it needs a
Right.
permit, what we're trying to find out. You're saying it's activity within the 100-foot, so it's jurisdictional activity. So it would have required a permit at the minimum, a small project.
A small
permit.
project,
Is that what you're telling me?
Right, but we don't do those after the fact, so,
Well,
well, I suppose you could allow one, but generally we don't do them after the fact.
okay. I think I'm more concerned about the dumping, and I think I'm frustrated at the fact that right now it can't be resolved because we can't get in there to observe what's there. Let me go down the line here and see what people think, all right? Jeff?
I don't have any questions.
No questions, comments, nothing? Doug?
I have no questions.
All right, so then, I guess my opinion would be to separate the two items. If it were up to me and I were making the decision, I would stay any action on the dumping until the spring, when we can actually get in and make an observation. And I would request an after-the-fact application on the wall if I were making that decision. That'd be what I would do.
So, yeah, and I have no problem with it being a small project. I can say that differently. If this was coming in clean as an initial filing, as a landscaping project, we would allow a wall, probably. But since the whole small project provision was to offer homeowners and landowners, a less onerous approach to getting permit properly. It was never intended to reward for activity that was done without a permit. So I'm not sure it's eligible for that small project. But
To be fair, I'm not really sure the homeowners understood that the wall would have required a permit. Its placement isn't really
Okay.
germane to the wetland, so if you're fine with memorializing it with a small project, I would grant them that.
Okay.
The only other thing that needs to be discussed is they've, asked if anything can be done about the fines that were issued. They were issued $700 worth of fines.
So here, again, I'll give you what my opinion would be if you asked me to write the decision. I would stay the execution of anything right now with respect to fines, dumping, et cetera. I'd stay it all until we can get in and make an on-the-ground observation to see exactly what is there or not there. And then at that time, we can then make that decision anytime. They know that they're not supposed to go in there and dump anymore, so we would hope that that stops. I wouldn't go back in there until late spring, and when you have a better chance. We just had 11 inches of water dumped on us in November. Everything's high right now, so we can't. It's not possible to make a decision. Anything we do would be silly.
To Jen's credit, she gave a good overview, and I just want the record to be clear. We don't often go the fine and penalties route right off the bat. First noticed in writing October 11th.
Yep.
October 11th.
Yeah, I got it.
November 6th again, November 19th again, and November 26th again. And this is the first time they're before us in 2 months. So, when we levy fines, it's because of lack of any attention of getting their attention any other way.
No, I'm not negating the fines.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this state.
Hold it.
Hold everything. To stay the execution of the fines, essentially issue a no-activity order, and then when we can get in there and make an observation and make a correct decision.
And I don't want to misspeak.
By no means am I saying erase the fines tonight. I'm saying
And I don't want to misspeak. Am I correct in assuming that because of all these written notifications, you had no response back until just recently?
Yeah, I think after you received the fines, you called me.
Basically, I know that I was in error, and I panicked when I got the letter, and I didn't, I have no excuse, I just panicked.
All right, so
But I did call on the day after Thanksgiving and left Jennifer a message. So the first contact I made was on Friday, November 23rd.
okay.
And she called me back, and we had a good conversation on Tuesday
Okay.
and the 27th, and she adjusted her schedule a bit. So as soon as I called her on Tuesday, we met on Friday on the property, and she gave us clarification.
Okay.
And we love this town, we want to be good stewards of the land, and a lot of it is ignorance, we didn't know.
We're just trying to get to the bottom of what
I
exactly is in the
know,
pond.
and I'd like to.
I'm hearing
from
that
this
he
day
doesn't,
forward.
that he didn't do any dumping there, but then we're seeing in the picture there's grass there, so I just don't know what else.
The clippings are there, when we bought the land.
There was a lot of crap
There was
back there.
there was things back there, and that's
That I
what he's
cleaned out.
referring to.
We appreciate that, but really that's what you're supposed to do. And we
Right.
appreciate it, don't get me wrong, but that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but-
So, because we all do the same thing.
Yeah.
And we just don't go in and read.
But I'm saying
things
I'm
up.
not recklessly dumping stuff back there, let's put it that way. I keep it extremely clean back
All
there.
right, so-
Extremely clean.
All right.
I think part of it too is we don't want it extremely clean. We want the 25-foot no disturb to grow back.
Well, I don't cut anything down. I'm talking about stuff that shouldn't be there, again, like pots and boards and
Sure.
stuff like that, which have been there.
Does somebody else have access to your property?
Yeah, my neighbors, and they throw stuff back there.
They have access to your?
Yes, they do.
They'd have to trespass on the property
But I mean,
to
if
get
they-
to that area. They have their own access too, so wouldn't.
It sounds like
The
from.
neighbor has access to this?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Right, but the neighbor could dump on his own property if he wanted to, but
No, that's not what I wanted to know. Is it, I'm hearing that the neighbor could easily access their property and just leave something there if they wanted?
He could.
Not only did he access, he roped off a section of my property and said it was his land. That's when it all started.
Has that been resolved?
It has been resolved to my favor, and he hasn't liked it, and he's retaliated because of it.
Okay.
Okay.
But I have permanent markers in the ground, and he roped off and put no trespassing signs up on my property.
So what we're going to accomplish tonight in the holiday spirit is we're going to get everybody's attention that we can't do anything else out there. We're going to find a way to memorialize the presence of the wall, let it stay there. And we're going to revisit the question of what happens with the stuff that's in there. And maybe time will tell that, there's a neighbor involved or not. But in the meantime, we're just going to hold everything inside, let the season move, let the winter season move on.
You want a small project filing for the wall, though,
yeah, we
correct?
I think we do.
Yeah, we
I think we do.
We absolutely-
And again, I know we're waiving the intent of the small project, but under these circumstances, I think it's enough to thread the needle through.
Okay.
The thread
Should
through.
we continue the enforcement action to like the second meeting in June?
With respect to the dump area, I would say yes. As far as the small project, they're just simply, the work is completed, right?
Done.
So the work is done, so just getting an application together, he can do that in the next 4 weeks.
For the 9th,
For the wall.
for 1/9. For January 9th, there's a meeting, you would memorialize the wall at that
Talking
meeting.
about the wall.
And
We
Jen,
can-
you think
we can
that-
resolve the wall.
Sorry, you think the septic plan that's on record is a good
It
base
would
plan
be
to work
adequate,
from?
right,
Okay,
yep.
good.
If we resolve the wall, then the only thing left is the wetland inspection, which I'd rather have you do in the spring anyway.
Okay.
Because going in now and doing a wetland
But we need to
inspection-
talk about this again at some point because we've issued $700 in tickets.
Well,
So we need to continue the enforcement matter to another meeting to discuss.
to whatever date, the enforcement action should be continued to whatever date we intend to resolve the dumping or lack of dumping issue.
Okay.
Look, a couple things on the fines. One, they've already told, right? They've responded, they're here, so
And I
they've
stopped-
told.
I
So
stopped
they've
issuing them, yes.
So then the question is, so what do we ultimately do with those? And I have no problem holding that in abeyance and just until that date.
We'll see what happens in June, and I suspect that it's, my impression is that it's going to work out, but let's just let it ride.
Yeah.
All right, so continue to the second meeting in June, and I'll inspect before then?
That sounds real good to me. You guys going to be in town the second week in June?
I can't tell you,
Yeah.
but I hope so.
Nothing,
Meeting, the
no
second
planned
meeting.
vacation?
Nothing right now.
So it would
Not
be
going
like
to
the-
Tahiti or anything around then?
The what?
Tahiti, you're not going down to Tahiti in the South Pacific or any
I'll
of
stay
those
away from that.
exotic places? Yeah.
July.
All right, that's cool. All right.
Jen, I was going to say, could we revisit planting and vegetation
We'll
in
see
that
how
area
things
as
have come
well?
back then,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we'll see what it looks like, see what it generates.
Yeah.
So what's that date? Second meeting in June, Jen, you think?
Let's look at the calendar.
But they can, you can get us the retroactive application for the wall, which is the small project application.
I can send you that information
All right,
to
that
make
would
that
be great.
easier.
Jen,
So
can-
it would be June 26th.
Okay? Is that
Move that we continue this discussion until June 26th.
Second.
motion and a second? Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is unanimous. All right, so you guys stay in touch with Jen?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And so we should come to the meeting on January 9th.
I will send you the small project application. It's pretty simple, and we can work through that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Okay, where am I? 422 Waverly Road.
So this is another enforcement matter. Trying to
Okay.
find the file. I asked the applicants to come tonight to get a little guidance. Once again, we have a contractor who installed the generator without his permit. Might be the same person who did the same thing at 730 Mass
I
Ave.
was just going to ask you, is it the same contractor?
It is.
Seriously,
I
if it
gave you an
is,
email,
I'm going to, this is going to be a real problem.
I
Not
gave you
for
an
them, but for this
I gave you an
contractor.
email as
Yeah.
to what he said back to me when faced with this issue. It's a local bylaw issue, just so you understand. It isn't a State Wetlands Protection Act issue. We just don't, if you want administrative permission to put a generator out, it needs to be outside the 50-foot no-build zone. We understand it's not a lot of ground alteration, it's not a lot of anything, it's just sort of if you want that administrative approval, it needs to be more than 50 feet away.
And so the question,
Let me ask you, is the weak link because they come in for electrical permit? Because electrical permits are allowed to come in after you actually started the work.
They can, but we've tried to make it known, and we have with a lot of, I get calls all the time about people, and, a lot of them will submit their plan with the generator location shown on it when they come in. Again, we just went out to inspect one that we thought we knew was near a wetland, and sure enough, it was. So, again,
There's no Form U?
Yeah, no, there is, but as Joe's saying, electrical work a lot of times will get started and then the inspector comes when it's in, to see what's being done. But we've made it clear to generator. I
No,
know,
Commonwealth, Massachusetts allows electrical work to begin without a permit.
right.
And you need to have the permit before inspection. It allows it.
I have a license.
I know that.
But again,
I was shocked to learn that too.
we've made it clear with the generator people that this isn't how generators are gonna work. It's one thing if you're wiring, a new bathroom or something, but
Listen, this guy's licensed in Massachusetts. There's a board of registration in Boston. If he's going to ignore the law in town, I'll go to the board of registration. That's nonsense. He's a licensed electrician. He's not a backyard hacker. If he wants to continue to operate as a licensed electrician, he's going to comply with the law, whether it's a bylaw or whether it's a mass general law.
I agree.
And I will personally go to the board of registration. I have no problem doing that.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Now we
You
have
can-
a-
You can deliver that message
I've
to
tried.
him. Well,
Now,
I will deliver
We're
the-
talking, even if an unknowing electrician were to make that mistake, I'm offering that forgiveness,
Yep.
maybe a loophole, but a guy who's been through it before in this town, who absolutely positively knows the issue,
Right.
there is no excuse for him whatsoever.
So he
He's
doesn't.
done it again.
Right. But in this case, you have homeowners who need and want a generator.
It tones at the contractor, not the homeowner.
Right, but they need direction as to
Or you're the-
what to do
You're
now.
both the
No,
homeowner.
just me.
Yeah.
'Cause he's my father, who I sent down when I got the letter, because
And
I
not
was like,
the
I don't know what to do.
Oh, God,
No.
no. We're here tonight because we take this serious. As Jen knows, we got the first letter, we came down to the City Hall the very next day to find out what it was about. We've talked to the contractor, supposedly he's a reputable contractor, we checked him out, and we had no idea that there was a 50-foot or 25-foot boundary involved. We want to get this resolved as much as you want to get this resolved. My daughter and her 2 young children, she's a single parent, she needs the generator. And so we're here tonight so that you people know we're serious about getting this resolved in the best way possible. We are having him look at other areas to put the generator. He's supposedly researching that data, but I've also offered to Jen, I will meet her at the property because I don't understand the 25-foot no build and the 50-foot, and I'd be more than happy to meet with Jen or any other person from the Conservation Committee to take a look at where we stand with this generator and how, is it 1 foot inside the 50? Is it 10 foot inside? I don't know that. So,
Where we can put it.
and I know 50 feet is 50 feet. I'm not questioning that either. But I want to do this right.
So just, we're all looking at a document that has been read into the record, but Jen made reference to an email from the electrician, or the contractor.
Contract.
And so to echo what you were saying, he is pursuing the question with the DEP. The question isn't with the DEP. He's mistaken in that regard. The DEP, we have a state law and we have a local law. The DEP is the state law.
Right.
We are the local law. So he's barking up the wrong tree.
And I'm here because I don't want to bark up the wrong tree,
Yeah.
just so you'll know.
So I just don't want to give any false optimism that he's going to get an answer from DEP that says, oh, you can build right up to the edge of the wetland.
Makes no
Maybe
difference.
under state regs you can, but not under our bylaw.
I understand. And that's why, again, if somebody could come out and take a look at it with me.
Well, I think it goes the way of 730 Mass Ave, where you either have 2 choices. You either need to move the generator outside the 50, which we gave you the option of doing, or prove that it has to be there.
Well,
so this, in other words, there's a waiver process from the 50-foot. And the waiver process requires the applicant to show us that there's no viable or feasible alternative location. It may well be that that's the only place it can go.
Right.
And if it is, then you're eligible for a waiver.
Okay.
If there's a spot where it can go that doesn't do you any harm, but gives you your generator, then that would be the spot it would go to.
Right.
So that's, I guess, Jennifer might be able to help you with that, with a site visit possibly.
Right. Well, because if he can move it to the back of the house, I would say you can get out of the 50-foot, but if you want to stay in the 50-foot, you're going to have to permit it, which is just a process that's, can be gone through, but,
So
you
there
know,
might be
you
a
have to
better
notify
spot.
butters
Yeah.
and do
Just-
legal ads and all
Just
those fun things.
my initial reaction when he first came, we had a couple different generator people come. I wanted it in the back. There's an air conditioning unit. I said, we'll put the generator right next to the air conditioning unit. Unfortunately, the way the house is built, there's windows and there's vents. So in order for him to put it in the back of the house, he'd have to put it almost 5 feet away from the house, which is almost in the middle of the yard for their little kids and the.
So your conditioner's up tight to the house?
The chiller is
The
up.
air conditioner's
Yes,
uptight,
yeah.
but the generator can't be because it has to be 5 feet in all directions from windows and everything.
It's for carbon monoxide protection.
And 5 feet away from a house, when you have little kids running around with wires and pipes and everything, I felt it was a safety factor, not knowing about the 50-foot. And initially, I didn't want to put it in the front of the house either, but that was the safest place to put it for the kids. Not understanding, again, the 50-foot limitation.
Have you got, none of my business, but I'm going to ask anyway. You already paid the contractor?
Yes.
Sure you have, right? Yeah. You're good people. You bought
Well, we
what you-
didn't know. I got
Well,
the letter
you-
after we paid them. I got the first letter, right, like, literally, like, 3 days, and I was like, oh my God, they said they're gonna take it away. What's happening?
Is it operational now?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Yeah, I got a call from the gas contractor too, who was rather surprised that this was going on, because all he
What-
was told to do was from the electrical contractor.
Who was that? Who was the gas contractor?
I forget his name, but he didn't,
He's called me several
yeah,
times. He's
because
very upset about
he
it.
hasn't been paid, I guess.
No, but he's also upset that we'll
That-
come to
I don't know if
this.
that's
You
you
know,
or
what
the
bothers me
electrical.
more is the email
I
from
don't
the
know,
contractor.
I don't know anything.
Well, the contractor, we can,
What bothers me is
Who
the email. the
Who was the
tone of
gas contractor, you know, the name?
you mean the plumber that did
Yeah,
the,
or the gas company, did you have
Yeah,
propane tanks out
he
there?
plumbed, he did the gas line.
he did the
plumber
gas
did
line.
gas line.
I'd have to go back.
It's natural
again,
gas, it's a natural gas
Oh, it's
line, right?
natural
You're
gas.
Yes,
coming-
natural gas,
Okay,
yes.
so it's a natural gas.
And again, he hired the electrician, he hired the plumber.
Yeah.
I just wrote the checks.
Yeah, that's,
And
can you go out there and,
I can meet with them, but if, I guess
I guess-
they'll have to file an RDA if they want to leave it, I think is the process.
that's, I guess we're just looking for your opinion.
What do we need to know? We need to know how close it is actually. Do we have that measurement yet? Not yet.
Yeah, it's 40-something feet,
So it is
I thought it
within the
said
50.
48 in the letter.
48, yeah.
think it said 48.
Savannah measured it, that was part of the, I didn't go out initially, Savannah did.
yeah,
so-
I know it's very close to the,
So maybe you can remeasure Savannah, go out and recheck Savannah's measurements.
I doubt the measurement, I know the wetland, it's between two properties, it's drainage outfall, it's not, actually, all the trees in it got chopped down
Yeah,
sometime
we-
last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, and that wasn't me either, so we had to clarify that too. That was not me either. That's
Nope.
not my property.
So, anyway, it's, it is what it is.
But I would love that to be cleaned up, on a side note. But that's not mine.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah,
should
so
we,
whatever you want me to do, I will totally
We're
do.
gonna figure that out now.
should we
Okay.
file a variance? or-
Any, Doug, any questions? Questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'd have to look at the whole property to see whether there was a logical place to put it other than where it is. I don't know if there was anything on the other side, or whether whole plumbing and the piping and all that stuff.
So the front of the house, the problem was, because it's like the garage and then a door, and then a window, the kitchen windows, and then the
Door.
big, like a big bay window for like the living room, and then the house ends. I mean, I had to cut down all the shrubbery too in front of the house, so now I just have 2 trees, because all the stuff had to go too.
Personally, I'd like you to do a site visit and just check the numbers. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
And if you'd be kind enough to do that, that would help us. We have almost enough information here, but not exactly.
Gotcha.
All right?
Yep.
Do you mind?
Nope, I don't know.
And we can continue it to sometime in January to discuss it further at that time?
And it is operational currently?
Yeah, we had and again, one of the reasons, and this it started to be installed the day before the gas situation in the Merrimack Valley, so this has just been an ongoing thing for us.
I'll go with you on the site visit.
Okay.
Oh, that would be great, that would be
Well,
awesome.
I'd love to see it because,
That would
We're
be,
going to have a conversation with Mr. Logue.
well, that's up to
That's
you.
separate.
contrary to popular belief, I'm not going to have a conversation with Mr. Logue at all. My conversation's going to be with the Board of Registration. Absolutely not going to be, I'll go to the Salt Stall Building, I'll do my talking there. But I'd like to do the site visit with you if you don't mind.
Okay, I will set that up. We'll talk and,
Yeah.
So,
So in the meantime, they don't do anything other than...
well,
meet with
you can use it.
there's
I mean,
nothing,
it's
and I'm not, I mean, we're
It's
not,
operational, so I mean, we're
Good,
not
'cause I don't
telling you
even
not to
turn it
use
off.
it.
and I haven't signed off on the permits, and that means the gas and the electrical inspector haven't inspected.
Yeah.
So, just,
Yeah.
continue.
But it's working though?
I will
without-
not be able to be at the
Are you saying
January
the
meeting.
gas and electrical
There's two
inspector
meetings in
hasn't
January we have.
They won't until the fees are paid for the
How many
permit.
meetings do we have in January, 1 or 2?
We have one on the 9th and one on the 23rd.
No, you'd be
Either of those
legal.
work?
The 20,
I'll be
I'll be
here. I
flying
can
back
be
on the
here.
23rd, yes.
We're navigating between
So let's
jurisdictional waters here, but
look at the 23rd.
Okay.
it's operational.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know it is, because it's run. And
Yes.
it
Well,
doesn't-
they told us it was operational.
Yeah, I had it tested.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's like, it's on a timer, probably exercises once a week and starts itself up, so it's running.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How's that possible if they don't have a sign off on electrical and gas? It's not, so it sounds like the contractor's got another report based on what Al's gonna see out there. And the reason why they haven't done the inspection is because the electrician hasn't paid the fees to begin with?
No, so I sign off on the location, they do their work, and then I sign off on the application, they issue the permit, and the fees are paid then, and then they go out and do the inspection. They, I think once it's installed, they call and
Right,
and say.
we were told once the generator
It was physically on the property.
and hooked up, if you will, then the electrician has to come out to make sure it's
But I
running.
don't think they come out until the fees are paid.
Well,
I don't
And so
know.
since I'm holding up the permit, the fees haven't been paid, so I don't think it's been inspected, but
No,
I
it
can
has-
So
confirm.
the fees have been submitted but not cashed in, is that what I hear?
No. The
Not even
fees
submitted?
aren't submitted until the
the
permit's issued.
permit's issued.
All right, I'm circling, I'm getting
Yeah.
dizzy. Because it shouldn't be operational,
It doesn't seem like it, but
So,
but it is.
it is.
this kind of goes back to this,
Yeah, that's,
This email right
this is
here.
almost becoming a trend of how this
It
particular
isn't.
contractor
This
might
property
operate.
is-
I know how to cure it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll go with you to the site visit,
okay,
and I know how to cure this.
okay.
This is not complicated.
All right, so we'll set up something with you. We'll continue to
Well,
January 23rd, and if you
yeah.
can't make it, we can always extend the,
Yeah, but it'll be probably with me because Katrina works. But,
Yeah, yeah, so you don't
anytime,
mind.
any, I'm at your disposal.
Before January 8th.
Just
Right,
leave-
before
leave-
January.
Do you have
do we want to
contact-
continue
do
to
you
the?
have contact
yes.
information?
Do we want to
Yes.
continue to January 9th or January 23rd?
23rd, please.
Okay.
Let's go to the 23rd.
Okay, and I'll set something up
All right.
before the 8th.
Motion
Yeah,
to
before the 8th,
continue,
because that's when he leaves.
So
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
please. Motion is second, any discussion? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And you're continued to January 23rd.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Keep this guy away from you.
You won't get a recommendation from me? You don't need one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who are the other folks? Okay. All right, we're going to move right along now, guys.
Yep.
Okay.
So
We have a small project, 225 Walker Road.
So, this is you've seen this before in this, when it went before CPA in 2014, you gave your general support to the concept, which was to connect the mills to Wire Hill via a multi-use trail. The first section of it doesn't require any formal permitting. It's a 3-foot wide path, most of which already exists in the form of the maroon line up there. The green line will be extended up to Walker Road and along the edge of Walker Road, right in the right-of-way, using some stone dust. It meets the exemption for the Wetlands Protection Act, has a 3-foot wide path for public use. And erosion control will be installed. The DPW's agreed to do 4 months of monitoring, make sure there's no erosion issues with the path once it's created. A public meeting was held for the Walker Road residents, because that road is generally, the town does have access to it, but it is generally private. It was constructed when those condos were put in. A few people did attend. We had some comments about trash and whatnot. We agreed to put a dog waste station up there, but it's the beginning of the trail and is a pretty, I think, benign project. That will serve to be yet another extension of our trail system and bring people by multiple uses to and from downtown and our open space.
So always a big advocate of getting people out into the environment to appreciate the things that we're trying to protect. Every now and then it comes back to bite us a little bit, and even then we get tough butts and we don't mind it when we do get bitten. But I remember approving a concept of a rail trail back along Salem Street where the ownership rights were very, very much in question. So though we support it, we're going to approve it as a small project, we're not extending or authorizing any property rights.
Right, so there are two things. We have the authorization from the mills, and the Walker Road aspect was investigated by town council, because there actually was some thought of putting it on there's a rail slash net.
The old rail bed, yeah.
So using the right-of-way, which the town owns the parcel on the corner where the ramp comes over, so the road is, the right to pass and repass on the road is the town's, and that was established by town council. So I think all those avenues have been vetted and discussed, so that shouldn't be an issue, but obviously not what you're authorizing anyway.
But if suddenly the people who were duly noticed and didn't go to the meeting suddenly say, why are there people walking in the back of my condo?
It wouldn't be on the...
We're going to say they came with a permit and...
It's not in the back of anybody's condo, it's on the road right-of-way. So Walker Road condos are across the street from where the path would be. It's on the opposite side of the street. The path is on the Kachikowick Brook side.
I'm actually thinking of the condos on East Water Street, is the ones I'm thinking of.
There are no condos on East Water Street.
Sure, at the corner of Chickering Road and East Water?
I don't think this goes that far.
No, that's on the other side of the river.
Yeah, that does. This
Of the brook?
Yep,
So this is between the brook and Walker, that
yeah,
thin stretch of land, not on
right,
the other condominium side
No.
of the brook? Okay.
correct.
Okay, all set?
No questions.
Shut up.
No questions?
No questions.
I hear no questions. This is a small project, so we have to first, I need a motion first to consider it a small project and what category it's in.
And that would be E.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now that we consider it an E,
I would approve as proposed, which includes erosion control with a pre- and post-construction inspection.
So moved.
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is unanimous.
Excellent.
Request for determination of applicability, 158 Coachman's Lane. Are you Mr. Boudreau?
Last but not least.
Have a seat, you're not last.
Oh, no, we got more.
You're not last, you only feel...
You'll be done soon.
You only feel that way, but you're really not last. Let's see what you are here.
So this is a project for a new deck. When the building permit came in, it was noticed that the deck actually incurs into the 50-foot no-build zone. That was discussed with the contractor, and they were able to cantilever the deck over the 50-foot no-build zone. It's the current, oh, I have some nice photos, actually, of the area. Photos like that? Oh, there they are. There's a Keystone patio in that location at the moment. And I did a site visit today just because I hadn't been out to the site. No one was home when I stopped by, but I took a few photos of the backyard. There's a prior order that did require some buffer zone restoration with more plantings along the edge of the lawn, most of which are still there. They're in sort of a mulch bed. It's not really naturalized, but this is a sort of a small backyard for that neighborhood. It butts right up against the wetland. The planning board did grant them a waiver of a watershed special permit based on the plan in front of you.
That's an old neighborhood. That street was built in the 60s.
So that's all I got. There was one wetland marker out there, so if you do approve the project, I would recommend that they put up a couple additional markers.
Joseph?
No questions, pretty straightforward.
No questions.
Mr. McDonough?
We are out of the buffer zone, correct? With the cantilevering?
With the cantilever, nothing touches the ground in the 50-foot no-build zone.
No questions.
Doug?
No question.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we grant the request for determination of applicability for 158 Coachman Lane
So a negative number 3.
with a negative number 3.
Second.
And wetland markers and a post-construction inspection as special conditions.
Perfect.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. All set.
So I will write that up and get it out to you hopefully by the end of the week.
Perfect.
And
So
sign up on the building permit.
Okay, so we'll get the permit to
As soon as I mail out the permit.
So we can do it in the springtime
Yep.
now and everything. Okay,
The permit's good for 3 years, so
Okay,
you'll have the
perfect.
option to do
All
it
right.
when it's
great.
feasible.
Thank you very much.
Okay, looks like 0 Stevens Street, Town of North Andover.
So, just so you know, the planning department has been representing this, but I told Gene, I've been working with Gene and DPW to get the trail marked out and things, so I'm happy to be presenting this evening for them.
Okay, we're happy to have you presenting.
Hey, thanks.
Present away.
Gotta find my plan.
You don't seem prepared.
Do you need a continuance?
Got
You're not
it.
looking for a waiver, are
I
you?
got this.
Did you bring your alternatives analysis with you?
I conducted my alternatives
Please
analysis.
bow in front of the vice chair, over here.
All right, so here's the property. If you are familiar with the area, you'll know that right here where my mouse is the entrance to the North Andover High School. So the trail you will be required to cross the road. There's a natural break in the stone wall. This is property owned by the trustees. The field has pockets of wet, and it is seasonal, it is annually mowed. They keep the field open. So it will, we stay high and dry. Where you see the trail going around is to avoid any of those pockets of wet, the depressions that are in the middle of the field. So the trail will be high and dry. It will need to be mowed pretty continuously, probably through the first couple seasons to establish something that people can walk on. There's a lot of woody brush and things in the
Just a
field.
brush hog, hush it.
See if anyone around Robin Hood's farm.
I think, we're going to have to, part of the grant will be to hire someone to do that mowing,
Okay.
to keep
They
it
mow it
open.
now,
They do, but
They
only
do all their own
annually.
mowing.
Yeah.
Because this is adjacent to the new parking lot.
But you're gonna
Yes.
knock down and keep the trail down so it gets
Just the
trodden and
trail, just the
established.
3-foot wide path that would
Yeah.
lead people
Isn't this,
over.
I'm sorry to go out of
Yep.
order, but isn't this trail going to need something more than just grass? Because they're going to be wet walking through.
Nope, we walked this trail and kept it to the high ground all the way
You
around.
weren't squishing along it?
No squishing. So when you get to where the
bridge,
bridge
yeah.
crossing is, the banks are high on both sides, that stream's fairly eroded.
Okay.
That location, this will be just like the one was approved for the Stevens to Stevens Trail. We used the trustees' bridge design. We anticipate that Friends of North Andover Trails will help with the work. The materials would be purchased as part of the CPA grant that was received in 2014. Again, high and dry on the other side, and it will pop out right
White
across
Hill
the street
Trailhead?
from the new parking lot that
Right,
the
the new parking
trustees
lot.
just put in.
Beautiful.
So,
Nice new parking lot, by the way.
this is priority habitat, which is what's you're seeing on this map, and so a MISA filing is in the works. Because it's not an NOI, it isn't submitted concurrently, we had to submit it separately. So we anticipate hearing back on that. We did move the trail. The trail had originally been proposed on the other side of the property, and the trustees informed us that there was, the priority habitat was particularly found on that portion of the property, so that hence some time has been taken to establish it over here. You have the bridge design in your packets. It would span the intermittent stream. I did the stream stats calculations. The watershed size is not large enough to qualify it as a perennial stream, and it is not in the watershed. It flows toward Kachiklik Brook.
Joseph? No, I know the area well, and it's a great project.
Sean?
I'm disappointed that the applicant hasn't provided us with elevations and a number of
There could
other
be some other-
items I would expect to see on here, Jen. So I really don't have anything else to say.
Doug?
No, no question.
Questions, comments, concerns? I hear none. Time for a motion.
You need a waiver because it didn't meet the filing requirements?
I believe
Just waive
there-
them.
there is a waiver request for work in the no build and no disturb zone.
Well, let's rule on the waiver first. Hear a motion on that.
Move that we grant the waiver.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. You have your waiver.
There was an alternatives analysis presented as well
Yep.
in your.
So now that you have your waiver, we need a motion to approve.
It would be a negative,
3?
negative number 3, because there will be no work in the actual resource area. It will span the.
-3 with
bank.
conditions?
Yep, pre and post, and,
So before we move that, just on sequencing, and you may not know the answer, but what we don't want to do is invite people in by way of the path and get it to the wet area without the bridge being there. So was the thought that the bridge be built pretty early on in this process? Because we don't want them trotting through, the wet areas.
right. Yeah, I think that would be a.
Is that a fair game?
I would think that's
to
a fair
condition that?
condition, yep.
Okay. So move that we issue a -3 determination that to approve the project as presented, and the sequence of construction is that prior to being open to public use, that the bridge be installed and be in place.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is 2421741, an ANRAD request for 0 Turnpike Street.
We have a request from Mr. Hockmuth to continue this to
Ah,
the
219,
9th.
yes, I'm
Because-
sorry, I missed it.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. It stands continued to 19. I note the next request is 1600 Osgood Street. I have a conflict. I will leave the room while you discuss. It's all yours.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
Still a quorum. We still have a quorum present, so Jen, do you want to just give us a quick summary on this before Mike, while he's setting up and before he
Yeah,
presents?
you'll recall that you've probably seen this property in front of you a few times before, including ANRAD filings in the past. There isn't too much that's different on this, other than I think some significant time was spent in the past determining that certain areas were and were not jurisdictional based on lots of different things. Some of that in this particular application has been set aside, and areas were not sort of parsed out as finely as in the past, and I think the science is there to support that determination. There are perennial streams, there's bordering land subject to flooding, there's bordering vegetated wetland, isolated vegetated wetland, and bank associated with the streams. Thank you. I have been on site twice to review the delineation. And as you'll note in my summary of what I presented to you, that there is some discussion about delineation fees that needs to be had as well. As you know, the state caps their delineation fees at $2,000, and the commission does not. So if they paid the delineation fee, that bill for linear footage of wetland resource area would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $17,000, which seemed like a rather exorbitant wetland delineation fee. So I thought I would leave. I asked them to pay the state minimum and the same amount under the local bylaw, and then said that if fee waivers were to be granted, they needed to come from you. So that's where we're at.
So just to revisit the fee calculations, that was something that we did and revisited, I think, when you first got here. And it was based upon, the level of effort it took to administratively and physically in the field to go out and verify and confirm the line. And on small projects, we knew it would definitely fit the model pretty well. And we always recognized that there'd be room for discussion on, the big projects when they came in, because it may not take all that much effort to do a bigger project.
Right, and on this project, it's not like we had to go bushwhacking for all of it. It's a fairly well-developed site. The wetlands were all we could drive around the site basically and get to them all. So it took us a couple hours, maybe 2 hours, and then I went out there subsequently to look at something I hadn't reviewed previously. So maybe 3 hours tops of time.
So is the thought that we'll get the presentation tonight and issue the ANRAD tonight?
No, we
close
don't have
tonight?
a DEP file
Still
number.
don't, so we can still take the fee question under consideration and discuss what makes sense, within the context of what the bylaw or the
Yep.
regs allow.
I think if you allow the applicant to present, you'll get a sense of,
Sure.
where we went and what we did.
Okay.
Good.
I'm not sure I'm ready for you yet.
Well, I'll ease into it as the hour's getting late.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. For the record, Mike Howard from Epsilon Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of Aussie Properties. As Jen mentioned, we filed an ANRAD in accordance with the State Wetlands Protection Act and North Andover's wetland bylaw. No work is proposed. We're simply asking the commission to confirm the extent of wetlands delineated on the property. As Jen also correctly pointed out, I've been delineating wetlands on this property for almost 15 years now. It's probably the fourth time that we've flagged the resource areas out here. Jen is also right. They haven't changed that much with regards to their location or extent. The only thing that has changed over time is the regulations. The State Wetlands Protection Act, unlike earlier filings, added language in 2000. I remember the date now, Jen, but in the 2000s, the Wetlands Protection Act regs were revised, where they provided a bright line test for what types of stormwater features are jurisdictional and what aren't, based on when they were constructed and where they were constructed. So things that may not have been jurisdictional back in the day are jurisdictional today, just because the regulations have changed. Also, North Andover has a size requirement for isolated wetlands that wasn't there in the past, too. So those things have resulted in the delineation that's here in front of the commission. This is just an overview map. This is included in the ANRAD application. I have handed out 11 by 17 copies of the plans. Jen gave a pretty good summary. For the commission's benefit, maybe I'll just take a minute and summarize very quickly what the changes were. Jen and I did spend a couple hours on site last week. Jen requested that we modify 2 wetland flags associated with the A series. This is a large wetland here. It's a big wet meadow in the back of the property. Those changes were minor. They probably changed the line 15 or 20 feet in 2 locations. Jen also asked that we expand the riverfront area around the Wetland Series 1 wetland, which is this wetland here. That's a concrete line ditch. The USGS maps out here are a little bit funky. They show streams that no longer exist. You may recall from prior filings, they've been rerouted into different pipes and whatnot. Jen pointed out that some prior determinations by the commission showed that entire channel as being a river with a 200-foot riverfront area. So I just expanded that to be consistent with prior rulings by the commission. Jen also, today, or yesterday, Jen, forgive me, also did a follow-up site visit for this extreme northern corner of the property. When Jen and I did a site walk together last week, we didn't make it out to that extreme northern corner. It's very thick, difficult to access, and it's very hard not only to delineate, but also for Jen to do her job as an agent and review the lines. So in the earlier version of plans I filed with the ANRAD, we had a note on here basically saying wetlands not accessed due to site constraints. There were a few flags that we were able to tie, but other than that, it was pretty hard to get back there. So just to avoid confusion going forward and make sure the ORAD is clear, Jen and I talked about it further today, and those 5 or 6 flags have been removed from the plans. The revised plans have been provided to Jen. I think it's on the first sheet, Mr. Lynch, in front of you. If you look in the top left corner, you'll see a note that I added in consultation with Jen too. And basically, we're just making it clear on the record that wetlands on the north side of that river were not field delineated or approved under this ORAD due to site access issues. It's a real remote corner of the property, and it's not really a factor one way or the other. So we just eliminated that confusion and cleaned up the plans. And I think that's it, Jen. Correct me if I'm missing anything, but those are the things that we talked about. Wetlands are pretty well defined, and we appreciate Jen's time coming out and looking at them.
Mike,
Yes.
on the plan that you were just referencing, I think is the one that's on the screen there and here for us. Could you gesture where that area is where we are not going to be
Right here,
determining?
right
Is it
where
up in
the-
that area?
Yep,
See the note there, Joe, in the middle?
right
This is
where my
wetland boundary.
cursor is on the plan
So
now,
what-
back here.
Okay.
And the reason for that was when I looked at the prior delineation of the site and the limited space that Mike had gotten into, it didn't really match up for the size of what had been delineated. And then when Mike mentioned there was an access issue getting back there, it didn't make sense to start delineating the backside of that wetland and really not continue it. Because I don't think you could get all the way to the property boundary.
No, and that portion of the property, Joe, has not been maintained in many years. And
So
it's
the block line type, that's the wetland line?
correct, and those are the
Okay.
flag numbers with them.
Not some sort of erosion control, that's the actual line, just a different symbol that we're used to seeing.
To make it easier to see, that's right.
All right, so, so if I were to take it and wrap it around, it looks like that whole area is contained and ought to be wetland, but you're saying maybe not, there may be some higher ground in there that,
There's definitely some higher ground, but not enough that it's,
What you see on the bottom of the plan there is actually a cement bridge that crosses the stream as it goes towards the
I see that.
Merrimack. So there's a bank right there, and that would be the easy part to delineate. They could identify the other side of that bank. But then once you try to start heading back and upstream, it's beaver influenced, and there's all
Yeah.
kinds of things going on back there. So they just stopped.
it seems as usual, it seems like I'm just asking benign questions just to ask them. But my concern is this could add confusion by omitting an area that we're not determining when it, is it simply safer to take that line and just bring it out to the railroad line and simply say the whole damn thing is wet?
well, I wouldn't want to concede that. Let me, if I could, Joe, approach you. I'll show you what was in the filing, just for some perspective. So this is the ANRAD that was filed with the commission. This is what the drawing looked like originally. So this is what's no longer shown here, Joe, this partial line. There's a big upland over there. There's definitely uplands back there.
So there is.
Yeah.
And a bridge to get there,
Right.
Yeah, it's just
or
it hasn't
crossing to
been,
get there.
it just hasn't been maintained in many years. And
And that's what I was saying, is rather than doing that, that's what you've eliminated. I was simply saying, you'd be giving up too much.
The only reason is the only thing that he was able to delineate was right here. And so if you look, that wetland here comes all the way out to this property line.
So I see, if I look at the old one, I see what's being done. I just want to make sure we're crystal clear in stating in that area what it is we're approving and not approving. So we're going to say, and maybe some sort of coordinates, we're going to say, we are making no determination.
Well, he already says that on his plan, right there, that in this area that they stopped their delineation. I'm sorry, the plan note is small
Oh.
on 11 by 17. I think that's what, it already says it on the plan.
that was the intent of the note, Joe.
That's the intent. I think it's inadequate. I think we just need better language to make it
However the
clear,
commission
that's
wants to
all.
word it, and the ORAD can have its language too, obviously, too, but it's a
Okay.
very small, remote section of the property. It's yeah, however the commission wants to word it is fine with us.
Deb, questions?
No questions.
Questions?
None? Okay. Do you have any more field work to do? Are we just awaiting a DEP number at this point?
Just awaiting the DEP number.
All right, so what we could do is, between the three of us, we could hash out language that might make that more clear, and it's probably okay, we're maybe 90% of the way there.
Sure, yeah.
I just want to be, when we say north side of the river, due to access, that we know exactly which area north of the river. Maybe it states it from such and such a flag point out to some other physical features that we could define. And make that more clear. And hopefully we can hash that out. You ready? You expecting DEP before the next meeting in January?
Yeah,
Before
I
the
mean, I
number?
logged on tonight, just as waiting for the check to clear revenue.
That's all it is?
That's all it is.
You were going to ask a question?
Jen, can you scroll back up again, too? There are a couple other notes on here, Joe, which I know are really small on that plan, but keep going up, Jen, if you would, a little bit more. So there's a note there, it says wetlands continue north, no access. There's another one that down the bottom that also points out that there's wetlands. There's another note there, wetlands continue west, no access. So I tried to note the heck out of it to make it clear there are wetlands over there, they're just not part of this ORAD. But we can, whatever wording that you're comfortable with, Joe, we're fine. Yeah.
Again, it's a very quick shot from the hip here. Even if it's just hashing out this area.
Sure.
Saying this area, no determination is being made.
We could do that, we could do a hatch pattern, sure.
Yeah,
that's
just
fine.
and that way we know that nothing's been done out here.
And
Why
then
don't
we
we
could
do
call
that? That's
out
a good
the
idea.
delineation, there's hatched area, has not been delineated or
Why
something.
don't we do that? That makes it nice and clean, I think. Okay.
Okay, so we take a DEP number, so the next meeting is the 9th?
The ninth, yeah.
Motion to continue to the 9th of
So moved.
January? Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and we continue.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
1919. So for,
Yeah, you
Well, I don't think
send that
that's the
back.
whole agenda. I
No,
think
we have to do,
oh, there
with
is?
30 Osgood Street.
yeah, so
No, that's
for,
been moved to continue to.
right, 430 Osgood Street was the third portion of the trail, which was in Riverfront and was going to be an NOI filing. We had a little mix-up with the abutter notification, and it didn't go out in time, so the abutter notification went out and noticed, so we need to open it. I guess we can consider it open since we're discussing it for that purpose, but,
If the abutter notification didn't go out, how can we open it?
the legal ad was in and posted for this meeting. So it has been legally noticed and is on this
The
agenda.
worst comes to it, we reread it at the next meeting, right?
Right, but to not renotice it, we have to open it and continue it to a date certain. So that's what I'm recommending that
Move
you
that we
do.
waive the reading and open the hearing for 430 Osgood Street.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's
Although we're open, I move that we continue to January 9th.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is unanimous. Continue to January 9th.
Good job. Motion to adjourn. Oh, we have
Second.
decisions?
No decision
No decisions
tonight.
tonight.
Are you satisfied with the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thought of being enlightened.
We already moved. He moved, I second.
I'm sorry. You guys are so fast. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.